Hey everybody, today I'm going to tell you the story about my worst run-in with an angry woke critic. Now before you get mad that I'm using the word woke, when you hear the story you'll see that this lady called herself woke and encouraged me to be more woke. So that's not my word, that's hers. And before I get into the story, make sure if you're getting something out of these videos that I make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the notifications bell so you can be notified when I make new videos. So, as you know, I do speaking and training all around the country. I've done over 1,000 events in 47 different states and meet all kinds of people and all kinds of interesting situations. And when I do these events, overwhelmingly, they go great. And people come up afterwards. I just was in California a few days ago and a guy said, "Man, that was amazing. You're the best motivational speaker I ever heard." And I said, "Oh, thanks." He goes, "You could be a comedian." I said, "Well, actually, no. Because when you go to a comedy club, you have very high expectation for something to be funny. When you come to employee training at work, your expectation is very low. That's why you thought it was so funny." But almost always get really, really great feedback. I'd say 99.9% of the time, the feedback I get is great. Every now and then, I'll have somebody who comes up that is angry or upset about something I said. And, that's part of the deal. When you're doing speaking and training, the tricky part about it that most people don't understand is that I can't just show up and say everything you already agree with and believe. Like, what a waste of time would that be? So I have to say some things that challenges the audience and how they think. And some people are more open to learning and growing than others. And the story I'm going to share with you is someone not remotely interested in learning and growing. And so, a lot of the training I do a lot of conferences and corporate training for companies, but I also do a lot of work with school districts. And I have found people that work at school districts to be overwhelmingly amazing people, hardworking, good-hearted people that really don't get the compensation that they deserve and or always the recognition that they deserve too. And so I love working with those folks, reminding them how important it is what they do and challenging them to do it, better than they've ever done it before. And like I said, the feedback is almost always great. Well, a few years back, I got booked to speak for a large school district in the Midwest. And I won't mention their name, but they're in the top 50 largest school districts in America. I think they had like 165 schools in that district, like 77,000 students, big district. And the school nutrition division of that district had, the director of that department had heard me speak at a conference, asked me if I could come do their back to school kickoff meeting. I said, I'd be honored. And so we book it, sent them a contract, got it all set up. And then she calls me and says, "Hey, before you can come speak at our district, we have to have a conference call with our Vice President of Diversity Affairs. And she needs to approve you if you're going to come speak there." I said, "Hey, no problem. I'm used to jumping through some hoops. Usually it's some paperwork. Sometimes it's, a CFO or a business manager that wants to talk to me before they approve spending money on training, that kind of thing." And I said, "No problem. Let's set up a conference call." So we set up a call, and it's going to be 4 of us. It's me, the director, the assistant director. They both had heard me speak before and were big fans of what I do. And then this woman whose position was the Vice President of Diversity Affairs for this entire large school district. And so get on the conference call. This is back before the Zoom days, so I couldn't see him. It was just a voice, 4-way conference call. And first thing this lady says, she goes, "Oh, so you're Jeff Joyner?" I said, "Yeah, nice to meet you." And she said, "Well, I went on your website and some of your seminars are very racist." I said, "What?" I mean, on my website, I have like the titles of some of the training I do and a description. I'm like, "What are you talking about? There's nothing racist on my website." She goes, "Oh, yes." And I go, "You're going to have to give me an example, lady. I do not know what you're talking about." And she said, "Well, one of your seminars, one of the seminars that I used to do a lot of was called Becoming a Ringmaster, Turning Your Circus into the Greatest Show on Earth." And it had a circus theme. And the idea of it was that, it actually was, ironically, it's a diversity training. The idea of it is if you went to the circus and all they had was trapeze acts one after another, you'd be like, the circus sucks, right? But it's the trapeze act along with the tightrope, along with the lion tamers and the clowns and everything coming together. That's what makes a great circus. And there's a person at the circus that is, their title is the ringmaster. And it's the ringmaster's job to direct the audience's attention. You know, for many years you probably heard the term a 3-ring circus, because while they were performing in one ring, they were tearing down and setting up in one of the other rings. And the ringmaster was the person whose job it was to kind of direct the whole show and make sure that things went smoothly. And she goes, "It's racist." And I go, "What are you talking about? It's racist." She goes, "The word master is in the title, and master is a racist word. It invokes slavery." And I said, "Well, maybe to you it does, because your mind is so focused on racism. You live in a racist world where you're looking for racist things and you'll manufacture them if you can't find. But the word master is not a racist word. In fact, lady, words can't be racist. How they're used, a person could be racist. And the words that person uses may, foster racism. But a word itself," I said, "the word master is not racist." I said, there's the master of ceremonies at an event. I play that role sometimes. The ringmaster at a circus, that's a job title. You probably have a master bedroom at your house. I have a master's degree. You probably don't got one, but I have one. You can go on and on and on, right? A masterpiece is a great work of art. There's, a master chief is a title in the military. That the word, Jesus' followers, it's one of the titles they used for him. They used to call him master, not because it was slavery, but because in that case, it was a sign of respect. I said, "Lady, that's a diversity training. That's not a racist training." I go, "You're going to have to do better than that to call me a racist." And she goes, "Well, there's another seminar I saw that's racist." I go, "What is that?" I had a seminar called, "Are you a zookeeper, a babysitter, or a leader? Learning to bring out the best in people." And the idea was that some people, it's like they're a zookeeper trying to keep everybody from escaping the workplace. Some people are like babysitters. In fact, I'd go on and on with these metaphors. Some people in their workplace management roles are like being like a psychologist. Some of them are lion tamers. Some of them, ideally, I recommend looking at yourself as a coach whose job it is to develop a strategy, recruit great people, put a game plan together, coach individuals, bring out the best in people. And she goes, "That's racist." I go, how is that racist? She goes, "Well, being a zookeeper," she goes, a lot of times people use animal metaphors as racism, that they refer to minorities as animals." And I said, "That's not what I'm doing. I'm talking about," again, it's a job title, a zookeeper, a very respected job title that people have to go to school for a long time to learn how to do that. That saying that someone might feel like a zookeeper sometimes at work, that's got nothing to do with race, lady. She goes, "Oh yes, it's referring to black people." And I said, "You are the racist in this conversation if you think any reference to animals is a derogatory reference to minorities. That's crazy, lady. That's crazy." And I'm starting to think, this event is not going to happen. And I'm getting pretty frustrated. And these other 2 women are just kind of on the phone. I go, "Ladies, are you hearing this? Am I crazy? Or is this like nuts what this lady is saying?" And very, very frustrating. Everybody starts talking. And I said, "Hey, listen, would it help if I shared my viewpoint with you on racial relations? Would that help?" And she goes, "I'd find that very interesting." And I said, "Okay, here's what I believe. That people should be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." And she said, "Well, I don't think I agree with that." I said, "What? What?" I said, "Ma'am, I didn't make that up, right? I'm quoting somebody. You know who I'm quoting, right?" And she goes, "No." And I said to the other 2 women, I go, "Ladies, you know who said that, right?" And they both said in unison, "Dr. Martin Luther King Jr." I said, "Okay, this has got to be some kind of a scam. There's like a hidden camera. I'm getting punked. There is no way that you are the vice president of diversity for a major school district and you don't even know who Martin Luther King Jr. is." It's impossible to me believe that you got that job without knowing that Martin Luther King Jr. The most famous line from his most famous speech is something that you never heard of and you disagree with. This is outrageous. I said, lady, you are an imposter. You are a racist. And I don't think I can even work with people like you. We're going to have to call this whole thing off. I go, this is a joke. There's no way you are qualified to do that job. And there's no way I'm going to be on a phone call for you one more minute where you are approving me to come do some training. This call's over. Nice talking to you. Boop, that's it. Well, by the way, this isn't the end of the story. The two women who had wanted to hire me, they called me right back and they're like, oh my God, that's so awesome what you said. I go, it's unbelievable. And they're like, this lady's crazy, but she has so much power in our school district. And I said, well, I don't think this event's going to happen. They said, well, we're going to try. So they end up kind of going over her head. They get it approved for me to still come. Okay. So I fly out there and I show up and this lady is there, the angry VP. And she comes up and I'm like, well, hey, she's totally rude to me, total jerk. And she said, I'm going to sit and listen to you. And if you say one racist thing, you're going to be in big trouble. And I said, well, have a seat, lady. She's got her little clipboard. She sits right in the front, big auditorium, several thousand people, and she's got her little clipboard. And I was talking for 3 hours. I was doing a 3-hour seminar. So I do my thing. I was talking about how those employees could have more fun and less stress at work. Talked about gratitude, being more thankful for their jobs and the hours they work and their coworkers. Talked about teamwork. Talked about customer service. Talked about, being a good teammate, the power of taking your eyes off yourself and serving other people. And people were laughing, they were crying, they had a great time. They got so much out of it. At the end of 3 hours, standing ovation, everybody except for this lady. Just sitting there. And so she comes up after. And again, it's me and these two women who are running this program and this lady. And I said, well, I'm sure you found something that I said that you didn't like, that you got there in your clipboard. What is it? And she goes, well, really only one thing. It wasn't as racist as I expected. Well, of course not, because, you see racism behind every tree in the forest. And I said, well, what do you got? She goes, well, you referred several times to your wife. And that is not inclusive language. It would have been much better if you would have used the word partner instead of wife. The word wife is non-inclusive language. And had you said partner, you would have indicated to me in the audience that you're someone who gets it. And that's just a much more woke term. You need to try to be more woke and not so non-inclusionary in your use of language, because obviously you don't get it. And I said, well, lady, I do get it. I get what you're saying and why you're saying it. But you know what? You don't get it. Let me explain to you the part that you don't get. I said, you and I have different jobs. We have different roles, right? Your role is accusing, attacking, judging strangers, right? Looking for things that are wrong when there's nothing wrong there. That's your job, right? Attacking, judging, being the most horrible person you can be. That's what you get paid to do. I have a very different role, right? I'm a professional communicator. My job is to use words and language to describe situations, stories, and ideas in a way that make the most sense to the audience. And so the reason I don't use the word partner is because it's a vague term, right? And if you knew anything about communication and communication excellence, you'd know that you don't use vague terms, you use specific terms, right? I have lots of partners. I have racquetball partners. I have business partners. If I went out to the Dude Ranch, I'd say, howdy, partner. I go, the word partner could refer to hundreds or thousands of people in my life. But there's only one human being in all of history, in the entire universe, that gets described as my wife. It's the single most specific, most accurate, best term that I could ever use. How ironic that you would take me to task on using the single best word I use the whole day and you somehow think that there's something wrong with it. I said, now I'm assuming that you have a partner, and surprisingly she did. because this was an angry, mean, ugly woman. And I said, you can call that person your partner. You're entitled to use the language you want, but I'm entitled to use the language I want. And well, she's very huffy and puffy about that. Did not like that. And I said, well, what else do you got? She's like, well, that's it. I go, okay. I said, thanks for sharing that with me. You're entitled to your perspective. You're entitled to think that I used a term I shouldn't use. But that doesn't make it true. That's your perspective. And that's your opinion. And I have a different opinion and a different perspective. And she starts to walk away and I go, wait, not so fast. It's my turn. I listened to you with an open mind and responded. Now it's my turn to ask you a question. She goes, what's that? I go, you just sat in the front row and listened to a professional speaker share for 3 hours ideas on how people can get more done in the workplace, be more effective, be more efficient, have less stress in their life, have better relationships. You know, arguably one of the better speakers in the country. You know, I've probably done more speaking for school district employees than anyone else in the history of the world. And you just sat there and listened to me share ideas that other people have received and utilized to revolutionize their lives. Almost everybody tells me when they hear me speak that they latch onto something that really, really helped them. And they apply it in their life and they're better off for me being here. So I'd like to hear from you. Could you share 10 or 15, 20 things that you got out of this training that you're going to apply to, you know, be better in your job for the students you serve and the families you serve? And she goes, well, I wasn't listening for that. And I said, well, okay, not 10 things, 3 things. One thing? Tell me one thing you heard that you thought, I could probably get a little bit better in that area. She goes, well, I didn't hear anything like that. And I said, okay. I said, well, you shared your opinions and perspective with me. Now you're going to get my opinions and perspective. What an arrogant, terrible person you are. That you are so closed-minded to learning, so closed-minded to growth and improvement. I said, in fact, you should not be allowed to work at a school district. Someone as closed-minded, judgmental, angry, bitter, and wrong as you should not have a position of leadership. I think you should resign your position effective immediately because you shouldn't be working at a school district. What a horrible example of learning, right? You're anti-learning, you're anti-education, you're anti-growth. And, you know, it just reflects such a lack of humility on your part that all you could come up with is criticisms and only one in 3 hours. It's shocking that you are allowed to do what you do. You are not qualified for this job. If there even should be a job like yours, which is arguable, you are not the right person to do it. Shame on you. Well, she did not like that feedback, and she stormed off very angrily, threw her pencil on the ground and stormed off. And the other 2 women were like, oh my God, that was awesome what you said to her. They're like, we can't talk to her like that because we'd get fired. They said, in fact, we're considering early retirement just to get out of here because people like that have all the power in this school district. And I said, well, hang in there, ladies. You're doing good work. What you do matters. You know, sometimes you gotta put up with some jerks. You know, my son famously said years ago, riding a roller coaster, you know, life's like a roller coaster. You know, it's not the ups and downs that get you, it's the jerks. And so, you know, and so here's my challenge. You know, here's the moral of the story is, you know, don't be that lady. I mean, don't be the angry critic, you know, the word, whether you call it political correctness or inclusive language or whatever. The truth is, there's no such thing as good language and bad language, right? It's the intention of your heart. It's how you use it. And the problem with that whole, you know, if you call it woke or whatever you call it, but that perspective like that lady, it's rooted in narcissism and arrogance and self-righteousness, right? That I know things that you don't. I'm privy to some wisdom that you don't have. Right? Because I'm morally superior to you, I can see racial injustice where you can't see it. And I'm in the right and you're in the wrong. Automatically. Everything I do and say is in the right and everything you do and say is in the wrong. Why? Because you're not me. It's arrogant. It's narcissistic. It's evil. It's literally evil. And so, boy, just a little dose of humility, right? That everybody has a chance to. I learned something from that encounter, right? That I'm not going to bow down to. I'm not going to be bullied by people like that, right? She's clearly attempting to bully me and the other people in that district, and you got to stand up for yourself, which I feel like I did. And boy, and I don't know if that's going to get worse over time. This was a few years ago. I've only really run into that one time at a school district. The only other times I've had kind of angry critics come up was like at a conference when kind of a different kind of workplace setting. In fact, I got a story I'll tell you about the lady who told me I shouldn't be using paper. That's a funny one. And I'll tell that at a later date. And so, but hey, here's my challenge to you. Don't fall prey into the modern intolerant. They call it tolerance, but it's intolerant, right? That the words you say are wrong and the words I say are right. It's evil. It's just rooted in the worst of human behavior. Don't let that happen to you. So anyway, hope you got some value in that story. Feel free to share it with anybody that you might find some value in it. And feel free to stand up and be strong for what you believe in. And say what you mean and mean what you say. And don't let other people tell you that if you say a certain word or phrase that makes you less than them. Because it's just not true.